Right, Donald Trump and his second term, it's reshaped global trade, tariffs, policy shifts, new agreements hitting New Zealand's economy. We know about these. Tomorrow, the US Business Summit will look at what comes next for our relationship. This morning, joining me at the desk is US political analyst Dan Schnur, who is here from the States visiting and will be attending. Good morning.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you here. Can we start with Venezuela?
Of course.
So do you think Trump's going to go in there, boots on the ground? Is this going to happen?
If I had to guess, Trump's preferred outcome would be to convince Maduro to step aside without any further violence. I believe at this point he's trying to intimidate him into stepping down. That said, if Maduro does decide to hang on, at this point Trump might not have any choice but to engage with U.S. military force.
And what does that mean? What does that do to the region?
Well, it tremendously unsettles the region. The Caribbean and Latin America have been largely overlooked by the U.S. for many years. And this, as you might guess, is not precisely the type of attention they're looking for. But the other interesting part of this, Ryan, is at home in the U.S. Part of Trump's message when he first ran for office was America first. Peace. The idea that we'd retreat from the rest of the world. And a lot of his most erstwhile supporters are very distressed to see what they see as this type of military adventurism characterizing this administration.
In his defense, could you not mount an argument that, the wars in Afghanistan, the wars further afield are not America first? Mm-hmm. If you were going to put boots on the ground, then this is where you would do it because the drugs, the illegal immigration, these are the issues that he's raised.
So I don't take sides in academia for or against this president or any other. But what I will say is that for all of the potential problems that Venezuela causes in the region and to the U.S., drugs really isn't one of them. The greatest threat for us, as it is for many countries, is the fentanyl. That is not an issue from Venezuela. They traffic in marijuana and to some degree cocaine, much more to the European Union's countries than to the U.S. And so Trump, the critics say that Trump had promised to end the war in Ukraine on his first day of the presidency. And the Gaza war is taking longer before the violence fully stops. So again, whether you happen to agree with him or not, some of Trump's own most ardent supporters don't want to see this. And that is causing him a political challenge at the same time that tariffs and inflation are causing a bit of a rift between him and his backers also.
Problem for the midterms, right?
No question.
What about Marjorie Taylor Greene? She's pulled out. You mentioned the kind of split that's going on with the MAGA movement. Is that real? I mean, we see the headlines here. Is that real happening?
It is real. Trump has had an extraordinary hold on his most loyal supporters, the likes of which we have not seen in our country's politics or in years, for many, many years. But on any number of issues, primarily tariffs, and now the inflation that's accompanying them, really has caused a division between Trump and his supporters. What's really driven that disagreement, more than any policy issue, is the controversy over the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. And I know you've read about that down here also. But if you take the controversy over the files, add to that the debate over tariffs and inflation, add to that a more aggressive international stance, and a lot of loyal Trump supporters who voted for him on those issues feel like he's no longer there with him. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the most visible example of that.
What happens to the Republicans once Trump's gone?
Okay. So that is the trillion-dollar question. Roughly 2/3 of Republicans identify themselves as being part of the MAGA nation, true blue Trump supporters.
2/3?
Yes. And so I think what we'll see after the midterm elections next year is you'll see several Republicans emerge as potential candidates, all attempting to define MAGA, all attempting to define the Make America Great Again concept on their own terms. So I think you'll see a fight for the soul and the future of the Republican Party between Trump's most loyal supporters and what we'll call pre-Trumpers, those who represent a more traditional type of conservatism.
Who do you think, because he's stepped away, shied away from endorsing anyone, there's always been talk about Vance, of course. Who do you think he will support, and who do you think will, it's anyone's guess, I suppose, at this point, isn't it?
Yes, and I learned the hard lesson about guessing on our politics back in November 2016 when Trump was first elected. Vance is clearly the favorite at this point. But Trump himself also thinks very highly of Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State and former senator from Florida, who really has been the driving force between the Trump administration's actions in Venezuela. There's a very large Venezuelan expatriate population in Rubio's home state of Florida, and that's driven a lot of this. Senator Ted Cruz from the state of Texas, who ran against Trump in 2016, has begun talking about potentially running again. He has challenged Vance very forcefully on a number of issues. Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and former UN ambassador who ran against Trump in 2024, is said to be considering running again. There will be no shortage of Republican candidates. The one thing we know for sure, though, is there'll be many, many more Democratic candidates running. I would anticipate at least 24 prominent Democrats seeking their party's nomination.
Do you think they'll go hard left like a Mamdani?
They will try. If there are 25 Democratic candidates, you'll probably have about a dozen or so that believe Mamdani is their North Star. But you see another wing of the party. We'll call it, for lack of a better term right now, the Clinton-Obama wing. You're seeing any number of Democratic centrists who believe that the reason that they've lost to Trump is by veering too far leftward. So you'll see quite a spirited fight in both parties by 2028.
Interesting piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning about the tariffs that have had, the effect that they've had on the global economy, which so far we haven't seen what was predicted to happen, but we've also seen Trump pull back and do deals and stuff like that. Markets kind of shrugging it off. But it was just talking about AI and how what Trump has taken with tariffs, AI has given back with investment, billions, $400 billion or something ridiculous from 4 of the big companies. What's your take on the bubble talk and just how far we've come with it in such a short space of time?
Well, the smartest economists in our country, of whom I am not one, I will assure you, tell us that the so-called Magnificent Seven, NVIDIA and the other top tech companies, are artificially holding up the rest of the economy. And if you were to take our Fortune 500 and separate out those top 7, the Fortune 493, if you will, really are struggling under the weight of tariffs, under the weight of inflation. And so the concern in Silicon Valley is that this technology bubble, like we experienced right around the turn of the century, might be overly inflated and that will not be in a position to carry the rest of the economy indefinitely.
Fascinating stuff. I'm being told to wrap because I've taken you too long, but it was very interesting to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Professor. That is from the United States, Professor Dan Schnur from the University of California, Berkeley. It is 8:15.